It's a difficult story to talk freely about when one of the parties involved, the Star Telegraph columnist Allison Pearson, has already threatened to sue my colleague James O'Brien for daring to discuss this on Friday. And yet the Telegraph newspaper has been running Pearson's version of events on its huge front page all this week, including today. I think there's 3 pages of it today. Her version of events has received support from everyone, from the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson to Elon Musk, and yet just as these famous names weighed in, more information has come to light which cast doubt on Pearson's version of events. Now, when we consider how misinformation over the Southport murders this summer, amplified by Nigel Farage, triggered mass riots, what greater reminder do we need of the importance of fair and balanced reporting? If, as it is starting to appear, that Pearson has misrepresented events vis-a-vis an encounter she had with the police on her doorstep, and her employer, the Telegraph, has unwittingly amplified those falsehoods, amplified to the point the row has now become a global issue, then what on earth needs to be done to put things right? I'm joined by LBC reporter Fraser Knight. Good morning to you, Fraser.
Matthew, good morning. Essex Police have really doubled down and defended itself over the visit that they paid to Allison Pearson's home last weekend. They've even now reported the Telegraph to a watchdog as the debate around free speech has really stepped up over this. Now, the Telegraph columnist had initially claimed that officers said she was being investigated over what's known as a non-crime hate incident, and that related, she said, to a tweet that she shared last year. Now, for context, non-crime hate incidents are looked at by the police when a crime hasn't been committed, but the motive behind it is believed to be hostile. So it's often recorded to try and stop more serious crimes from stemming from them. Yes. But yesterday, what Essex Police did is it came out and said that Miss Pearson was visited not as part of an investigation into a non-crime hate incident, but into an investigation into an alleged crime, which was stirring up racial hatred online. They've even released the transcript of one of the officers' body-worn videos to back up that claim. And they've said at no point did they say to Miss Pearson that this was part of an investigation into a non-crime hate incident. Now, earlier this week, you might remember The Guardian claimed it had seen the post that this police visit related to, an alleged retweet of a picture, which has since been deleted, but was posted as tensions were high following the 7th of October attack. And it was of police officers posing with people of colour and a flag, in which Allison Pearson is claimed to have said, "How dare they look at this lot smiling with Jew haters." Now, of course, all this week, the Telegraph and others have been running stories about the time spent by police investigating non-crime hate incidents.
Kafkaesque is the word that's been used.
That was the word that they used. And also about the perceived threat that Essex Police's actions have on freedom of speech. But the row, as I say, has led the force to actually report the Telegraph to the media watchdog Ipso, claiming some of its reporting has been false. In a statement, it said Essex Police supports free speech, but it doesn't support inaccuracy.
Ouch.
And we have contacted the newspaper, of course, for a response to that.
We should make it clear that the picture that Allison Pearson allegedly tweeted about that shows 3 brown people next to a flag, the flag actually has Pakistan written on it, and it's a flag for the PIT, a political group within Pakistan. And so if all that is alleged transpires to be true, then Allison Pearson, who says that she was questioned about no crime, when in actual fact the police say she was being questioned about an alleged racist crime, she may very well have portrayed brown people, cast all brown people as Jew haters, despite the fact that it says on the flag Pakistan, which is a very difficult position for her to be in. What I find baffling is the Telegraph's decision. I understand the Telegraph, you back your man or your woman, that's what you do. But as more information has come to light, the paper seems to be doubling down on the fact that its reporter is sort of, in the clear, a victim, if we like. And yet, as you said, the police are doubling down and they are producing evidence which suggests the other.
Yeah, and look, there has for a long time been a debate about the way that police investigate non-crime hate incidents.
Yes.
We understand the Home Office is looking at it again. And you mentioned there as well, all the sort of big political names that have come out. You've had Cami Badenoch, the Conservative leader, also saying that police need to stop wasting time on trivial incidents. But there is also this argument about accuracy. It is pivotal to, how we work as journalists. And that is something that Essex Police has said, well, you need to make sure that you're reporting this accurately. It's obviously they've reported this to the watchdog and we have contacted the Telegraph for a response, but we haven't heard anything back from them yet.
Which brings me, thank you, Fraser, that was excellent. Which brings me back to this notion of how dangerous misinformation is, how those riots in the summer were driven in part by misinformation. You can go back over things like Brexit and so many aspects of our life in which misinformation has been fed into the public domain. But in this particular situation, it appears that evidence is now being produced that makes us see the story in a different light. I see it now from Essex Police's point of view, which begs a number of questions. Essentially, what should happen? Should there be consequences for the Telegraph? What should those consequences be? Should there be consequences for Allison Pearson? Should all those who've spoken out in favour of Pearson offer up apologies? They themselves have amplified misinformation, if Essex Police are to be believed. I have no reason to think otherwise. Do we treat misinformation seriously enough? Well, one man who knows more than many about the dangers of misinformation is my next guest, Professor Roger Griffin, Professor of Modern History and a political theorist at Oxford Brookes University. And he joins me now. Good morning to you, Professor.
Good morning, Matthew. Yeah.
I just have to say, as a journalist, I'm extremely uncomfortable with newspapers using power to crush truth, if that is what is happening in this instance. What is your perspective, sir?
Well, it's a complicated perspective. I mean, but what worries me is that there seems to be a polarization going on in the world. Authoritarian societies have an imposed truth from above, but what's happening in democracies all over the world is dangerous polarizations between camps of feeling. And immediately this issue came up, it was immediately polarized into supporters of the Telegraph and of the journalist, and attackers on the police, and siding with the police. And the fact is that both sides have committed, I think, very unfortunate steps. And I think there's an awful lot of soul searching to be done, both by Allison Pearson and the Telegraph, about editorial responsibility, because in the context of the riots this summer, it is very, very clear, and I think that's the context in which the police visited her. It should be painfully obvious now that any sort of simplistic tweeting, or even well-informed tweeting relating to issues of race, etc., should be, basically censored before they, in the mind of the journalist, before they get out there. So I think there's an awful lot of soul searching to be done there. But on the other hand, the way the police have come round to her house on a Sunday morning, etc., is also totally cack-handed. Reminds me a little bit of the arrest of Cliff Richard, if you remember. I mean, no matter what she's done or is accused of being done, the incident was done in a way which was bound to inflame public opinion.
How are you supposed to question someone about an allegation of inciting racial hatred? I mean, over the phone?
I mean, surely, in this case, a discreet invitation to a interview, which makes very clear the grounds for the incident and what is involved legally, the status of the interview, whether it's a criminal investigation or not, etc. You don't just go into somebody's house. I mean, Alison Pearson referred to it as a Kafkaesque situation. Well, in the beginning of the trial by Kafka, this guy is arrested in his bedroom at the beginning, and and I just think both sides have a lot to learn from this. There's a whole legal issue. There's a whole issue for the way the police handle things. But what gets me as well is that this little incident, which is small in the context of the Gaza war and all the things going on with Trump and Putin, this is a really trivial thing when the world is awash with conspiracy theories and
although I'd have to couch that, Roger, by saying that the Telegraph has taken a very pro-Israeli line on the war from day one.
Well, exactly.
And when you have a columnist who allegedly is using a social media platform to denigrate all brown people as Jew haters.
She should be ashamed of herself. I mean, one of the first rules of investigative journalism is you investigate. If she got the photo wrong, even if she had a racist thought, I mean, it's a double whammy, really. It's a racist tweet, and it's also an ill-informed one.
How do we resolve it? How does it get resolved? Because this is what I'm fascinated by. Is we've had the Telegraph is out there even today, huge front page. The story continues every day this week. That story is out there. It looks like the story is going away from the Telegraph. That the truth is leaving them. How do they put this right?
Well, the Telegraph has no interest in putting it right because it's a right-wing newspaper and it's got very clear political battle lines, and I think I mean, look, we have learnt by now that we cannot look to newspapers for objective, considered investigations of anything. I'm sorry, I don't want to use melodramatic language, but the whole way the incidents in the campaign against Gaza has been polarizing society in Britain is extremely distressing. On the one hand, you've got anti-Netanyahuism being confused with anti-Semitism and a whole load of things there. You've got also an extraordinary neglect of the Gazan situation by people defending the right to self-defense. And I just see this incident as a little case study in what a sad, confused, conspiracy theory driven society we're living in now, and I thank goodness that people like you are still trying to go beyond the headline.
I'm flattered, but I'm going to. The cynic in me agrees with every word you've just said, Roger. I can't deny that, but I'm going to valiantly push you and say, come on, the Telegraph. It might be a right-wing newspaper, maybe even subject to a government review on its ownership, but it is a bastion of news, a chronicler of our times. And after running front-page headlines all week, surely it is the only responsible thing will be for them to give equal prominence for one day at least to the truth, as Essex Police describe it.
Accuse you of naivety. I mean, we know very well that even the most erudite papers written in the best English and etc. have a political position and have a political stance, and the Telegraph has form in the stand it takes on all sorts of political issues, and I don't think that's wrong. I mean, newspapers historically write columns for their silo of believers. I mean, it is not like the BBC. If the BBC had done this, I think it would be a major issue. But
I think you're right, but I don't think the BBC would do it because of the journalistic values that I hold, and I'd like to think all my colleagues hold.